All right, this is a video for CS140 Lab 6, the Kino lab, and we are going to do a quick factorial review since this lab uses factorials. So in the lab you will see in factorial. And what does that mean? Well, the factorial, the exclamation point sign, is an abbreviation, and it's an abbreviation for a type of multiplication. So if we were to see like n equals 6, 6 factorial is equal to 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. So n factorial in general means n times n minus 1 times n minus 2 times n minus 3 times n minus 4, however much subtraction you need to get all the way down to a times 1. So why is this useful? It's useful because we use the factorial to calculate permutations. And if you're unfamiliar with what a permutation is or haven't heard that word in a while, think of it like a combination of items, only order matters. So only order matters, which is really important. If we're talking about calculating combinations, order does not matter. So in this case, an order does matter. So for example, a problem that we could use to solve with factorials is how many different strings could I make? Could I make out of the letters? The letters, say M and I and S. So how many different 3-letter strings, let's say, could I make out of the letters M and I and S? So let's ask ourselves, does order matter? Does order matter? Yes, it does. Why is that? Think about that for a second. Why does order matter? So if I'm looking at how many different strings that I can make out of these letters, is MIS a different string than SIM? Yes, it is. So order does indeed matter. The order that I put these letters in makes my count go up. So if I were going to just list out the answer to this problem right here, I can do that pretty easily because there's not a whole lot of letters. So here are my blanks for my 3-letter word. If I say, okay, let's start my word with M, then the next letter I choose, let's say, is I, and then I'm forced to have an S. And let's say to make this counting a little bit easier, I'm locking in this M for now, and I'm going to try to enumerate all the different possibilities with just M locked in. So with M locked in, then the other way I can do this is S and then I. So now I've gone through all the different ways with M locked in. So now let's lock in S as the first letter. So with S as the first letter, then I could say M and then I, and then I could do S, I, M. And then let's lock in M as the first letter. So I could say M, S, I, or M. Sorry, already locked in that as the first letter. Well, we need to lock in I as the first letter. So I, M, S, and I, S, M. So how many different strings have we made? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. So as you increase the number of letters here, you're going to have a lot harder time writing this out. So what's an easier way to calculate this? We'll take a look at the number of blanks that we have to create 3-letter words. When I'm looking at the first letter, I have 3 choices for that first letter. Then once I lock it in and move on, let's say I choose an M, then I only have 2 choices left. And then once I lock that second letter in, I'm forced into the last letter. So that is equal to 3 factorial, which happens to be the number of slots I have for my string. What happens if we are looking at MISS instead of just MIS to create 4-letter strings? Well, the S's are the same letter, so that makes things a little bit trickier. And if I were to, let's say, enumerate all these different ways, if MISS gets written out, then okay, I'm going to say I choose an M and an I, and let's say, oh, I'm going to choose the second S here and the first S here. Have I changed the word at all? No, I have not. I'm looking at the exact same word. So I only count this word once. So that makes things a little trickier. This actually ends up being 4 factorial divided by the number of letters that repeat. So I have 2 letters that repeat. So I divide it by 2 factorial. You won't come across this in lab, but you will see this in CS202, and I also saw a question like this on the GRE. So if you're going to go into grad school, it's useful to look up this kind of math. So again, this is a review on factorials for the Keynote lab.